Ahoy YouTube, it's Professor Mimi from Card Fight Crash Course, bringing you a very special deck tech today. Another one of the top cut decks from Pasadena earlier this month. It's been rough with the holidays to find time to make videos, but I'm here with a special one with the deck provided by my friend, Nina. She was the one who topped with Reit. The name of the deck is Reit is Great. She loves Reit, and she's poured her heart into this deck, and she's worked really hard over, I think, multiple years at this point to refine this deck and strategy into something that can really shine and bring out her strengths. And I think she was definitely able to do that. 6th place is pretty good considering how many players we had in the event. Good enough to get one of these wonderful mats and one of the wonderful Honolys. So I'm very proud of the way she's performed. Because also I've helped her to develop this deck a little bit. I'm kind of like her coach. So over the past few years as I've been helping her improve not just this deck but her play, it was really nice to watch it all come into fruition and to see her perform. I was really proud of her. I'm really proud of the deck that she put together, because as much as some of the things in here I helped with, one of the core things in this deck is really neat that she had it as a shower thought. I'll get to that soon, but it's really special. There's something pretty spicy in here that I think you will like, and it might not be apparent when you're just reading the cards through the deck log. So we're gonna break them down one by one. Starting with the main deck cards that you might not be familiar with, because some of the cards in here are pretty standard, but some of them are not. This deck is built around, of course, Duo Temptation Reit, who is part of the Duo archetype, a type of cards, a set of cards where they have a gimmick where you want to have multiple names in rotation so that you can do multiple cards of the same name in rotation so that you can do some fancy things. They've got a bit farther from that with the V restructuring of their gimmick, but they still at the heart of it shine through, and the names of the cards matter. So Reit is a restanding Vanguard. If you haven't read her, I wanted to go over her second, but we'll start with her now. Reit is a restanding Vanguard, primarily. She has an act skill that you don't want to forget about, or you can bind a rearguard to draw a card. And then her main skill, her second skill, at the end of the battle she attacks, you counterblast 1, you discard a card, stand her, she gets drive -1 until end of turn. Then you can choose a card from your bind zone with the same card name as the discarded card and call it to rearguard. And then if your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3, you get a force gift. So this allows their naming convention, their gimmick of requiring the same names to still shine through, because you need to discard a card that you have in your bind zone in order to get the extra attack. If you just discard any old card, you're not going to get an extra attack. So you have to have a little bit of setup. But that setup isn't too hard with our friend Roan, Earl, and Nectaria as well. These are the rest of the cards from V that have the Duo archetype. There was a lot more in... Oh boy, the glare on that is intense. Oh my. If I prop her up. That's better. In V, when they reprinted a lot of the cards, they didn't... A lot of cards in general. They didn't dive too heavily into some smaller archetypes. Like Ripples only got like 3 or 4 V cards, and Duos only got 3, and then a special Prism Duo, Nectaria. But they all luckily synergize together very well, and they add a new gimmick to their rotation, which, as you saw in Reit, is the use of the bind zone. These other cards all use the bind zone to let us do interesting things with our cards. Roan is going to be our payoff for having bound our cards. Roan has 2 skills. The first is an auto when she attacks to get +3 for every card bound, which stacks up relatively quickly. And her second skill is the most important one. If you have a duo Vanguard, on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counterblast 1 to choose a card from your bind zone and search your deck for a card with the same card name as it and add it to your hand. So that's really easy to get this set up for Reit if you have the counterblast to just go search something. But how are we going to get the cards bound? In the first place, we've looked at all the payoffs for having bound them, but how do we get them there? That is what the grade 4 Nectaria is in here for. There's a whole play set of her in here because she's very important to our strategy. She has an act skill, which is a hard once per turn. You can bind her, search your deck for a normal unit, and bind it. You can only use an ability of this ability of a card with the same name as this once per turn. So hard once per turn. If you have 2 Nectarias in your hand, you can't use both of their act skills. Then she has the continuous skill on Vanguard or Rearguard. During your turn, if a card with the same card name in this unit is in your bind zone, she gets +10, and if she's on Vanguard, she gets a crit and a drive. So she can be a backup Vanguard if you got paralyzed by Gridora or something. But normally she's one of our primary call targets off of Reit. So you can call the 14k attacker down to Rearguard, and then she'll get her +10 to make her a 24. If you've put a force gift there, that can be 34, which is a difficult block. It will require 2 cards or a real defensive card like a G Guardian or one of those V Guardians. And she slots over here into our top end. Lastly, we have Ural, who is a grade 1, who is one of our primary ride targets. Ural says that when she is placed on Vanguard, you search your deck for 1 card and bind it. Then you shuffle, of course. And then she has a secondary skill. When she is put on Rearguard from hand, choose a normal unit from your drop zone, put it on the bottom of your deck. If the card put has the same card name as the card in your bind zone, you Soul Blast 1 and draw a card. So this functions as our primary baseline for what we're doing. We're maxed out on all of the V duo cards here, including Nectaria, who it might feel like that might be too many at first, but she's so important to see that you don't mind seeing multiples of her. And if you see multiples of her, then you can just get her out of your hand by binding stuff. Well, is that really going to be... You really just get rid of her. That's so... You literally act to neg yourself. Is that really good? It can be, depending on what we're searching. So the primary thing you can do if you have nothing else going on at an absolute baseline, this functions for ride fixing, because this is, spoiler alert, the only grade 3 in our deck is Duo Temptation Reit. As a baseline, even though we only have 4 grade 3 Reits, it's really easy for us to ride all the way to her pretty consistently. If we have our other duo cards, because we can ride Roan. Roan will bind a Reit. Or ride Ural, sorry. Then we ride Roan to use the counterblast we get from our opponent to search for whatever we bound. So if we didn't have Reit, we just add Reit, and then bam, just like that. The ride line can end up searching Reit, which is great. But if we do not have access, or if we already have access to Reit and we do not need to use our ride line to search Reit, what else could we search? What are powerful cards to search? This is where her shower thought comes in. I can search anything, any card. I can bind it, search it. What is a good payoff for being able to search my deck for any card name and add it? Well, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Pearl Sisters. But the Pearl Sisters, Pearly and Pearla, have a continuous skill where if the other is on the board, they continuously become 2,000 or 28Ks with an extra crit. That's just at all times. They each have the same but slightly different text on them, where they make the other one get plus power. So she gives plus 18K and the other gives her plus 20, so they each end up at 28K with crit. And they each have that continuous skill. You may only have one of this card in your deck, but this card refers to not a card with this name, but specifically a card with this rules text. So if we play the older versions of the Pearl Sisters, these have the same name, but they aren't this card. It has a different rules text. These are the original printing from the very first Bermuda Triangle set. They don't do very much. The grade 1 is kind of lackluster, all things considered, when she is placed on rear. If you have a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, which of course you do, you choose one of your units with Pearl Sister Perla, and it gets, when this unit attack hits, Soul Charge 1 and draw until end of turn. Which is pretty narrow, to say the least. It's not going to be an all-star, but it can come up because you have 2 targets for its skill to give a nice little on-hit too. And the other synergizes relatively well with that effect, especially given the time period it was released from. Soul Blast 1, when its attack hits, choose one of your rear guards, and you bounce it. So the original synergy was, you would call the grade 2, you call the grade 1 behind her, you give her a skill, the on-hit skill, then she hits, then you Soul Charge 1, draw, Soul Blast, which you Soul Charged, and then you add the Pearl Sister back to your hand so that you can do it again next turn. And it creates a consistent pressure threat. Or at least it did, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. It kind of crept. What provides a real pressure threat is 2 attacks with 28 with crit. That's 4 damage. Reit attacks twice, so that's 6 damage on board. If you go into our main stride, Heltrata, which we'll go over later, she essentially lets us restand our front row. We get to threaten 1, 2, 3, 4. Heltrata's 5 minimum, but everybody plays around a crit, so you kind of expect like 6 damage. Then they attack again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Reit attacks twice, 5, 6, plus her extra attack for 7. So you're threatening a minimum of 12 damage if they have no way to block anything. It's a lot of damage if you can assemble the 2 of these together. But traditionally it is quite challenging to get them both together because you only have one of each and they only work when you have both of them. In the Reindeer deck forever ago, or I should say at that point it was the Q-tier deck, where they would place that grade 3 rear guard and then they declare a card name and then they reveal until they get the right card name. That was a way to make this pretty good because you could just search it, but we can just search it. So if we draw one of them, then we can use Ural to bind the other and then Roan to search it. So if we draw the grade 1, we could bind the grade 2, then Roan searches the grade 2, and then we have a lot of pressure with these added to our hand pretty early on in the game. We can also bind them with Nectaria if we draw this, but we've already found something we want to bind. So we can bind Nectaria, bind one of these Pearl Sisters, and then with our other effects, we can search them up. So that gives us a huge ability to just auto-win games. I've been talking to a lot of premium folks, and that is something that you want to have in your deck, is a way to just kind of auto-win. And the Pearl Sisters provide some free wins. Some pretty free wins on occasion. Not every win is free, but every now and again you just kind of dunk on them and they can't really do anything about it. It's a pretty sweet little engine to just get all your gears turning. You get some big, beefy beaters. and then you restand them, or you can protect them. You can get into strange situations where if you call these out early, your opponent will run everything they have at them. They are kill on sight. So like they will swing their Vanguard. They will swing their entire turn, multiple Vanguard swings into the Pearl Sisters to try and kill them. So if you call them out too early and you don't have enough counterblast to restand them with your Vanguard, you can end up in tricky spots. So think twice before you commit them to the board, because it is quite possible that once they are down, you will not receive another counterblast until they are gone. Whether that's them gone by you scooping up your cards because you won, or them being gone because you took your 6th, or they got absolutely annihilated. But this is not enough cards to fill out a deck. So we have to have a little more something. Looking at what we have here, we definitely need more grade 1s to ride. So the first thought we had was to add some of the V Prism cards, because we already have a Prism duo, so we have some Prism cards in our deck. So we added Prism Image Clear, and at one point we were also playing Prism Image Rosa, but after a lot of extensive testing, just like always in every format, every time Rosa's printed, Rosa is not up to snuff, and she's very disappointing. Poor girl. It's always so lame. She always gets the short end of the stick. Poor Rosa. Ugh. Poor Rosa. But Clear, on the other hand, Clear always comes through for me. She's always a fan of me and the plays I make with her, and I'm a fan of her too. We get to make some sweet stuff happen. Clear has a lot of text, but she actually doesn't end up doing very much in practice. When she's placed on Vanguard, you can check the top 7 for up to 1 grade 2 or greater card with Prism in its card name from among them, and add it to your hand. In this deck, the only target for this is Nectaria. You could add Rosa off of this, but without Rosa, well, no targets. And then her secondary skill in the bind zone, you can bind a card with Prism in its card name, and you draw a card, and she gets +10. So she's a good backup call off of Reit's bind skill, or call from bind skill, because she's going to replace herself in the bind zone and draw you a card. Yeah, she's weaker than Nectaria by 5k, but if she's on a force gift and she's gotten her own 10, then she still swings for 28, which is still quite chonkin and requires some respect. But that 5k you give up on offense, you get an extra card, which can make a lot of difference. Of course, you then had to call a card without shield, or with shield, or discard a card with shield to do this. But you get the picture. She allows us to at least do something when we're riding up, make sure we have 8Ks, because playing old grade 1s wasn't working out too hot for us. These ended up being really nice in practice. Even after we take out Rosa, like, yeah, you don't always get to add something when you ride up, but if you're not adding a Nectaria, odds are you whiffed because you already had one, so you can't be too upset. But what did we do if we're not playing Rosa? Because Rosa had a skill when she's placed from bind zone very similar to Clear, but she wouldn't get you card advantage, she would just get big. And she would let you counterblast 1 to check the top 7 for up to 2 prisms and add them to your hand, but there aren't very many prism cards. Even in the prism deck, you would only be taking out a grade 3 for another one, because a lot of the old prism cards aren't very strong. So it's counterblast 1 to maybe go +1 or 2, which is just not an efficient use of our counterblast. With cards like Roan, Reit, and Haltrauda, those are a much, much better use of our counterblast. Counterblast 1, search anything. Counterblast 1, restand my Vanguard. Counterblast 1, soulblast 1, restand my front row. Those are much more efficient uses than maybe get a random card. So it's just ended up being completely useless in practice, and we were just playing her for the Prism name. So we were able to smooth things out a little bit. Considering we don't actually want to ride these cards, in order to really smooth out our grade ratios, having a few more 1s and 2s would be really nice. So we ended up evenly splitting that slot between 2 cards that really help smooth out the deck's performance. 2 copies of Mermaid Idol Sedna and 2 copies of Courteous Beauty Saria. Sedna is one of those generic top 5 checkers for a grade 3. And then they have the clan mechanic to get +5. Our clan mechanic is essentially friends. And there's another unit in her column. She gets +5. Yippee. And then she has one placed on rearguard from hand. Check the top, or Vanguard or rearguard from hand. I'm so sorry. You check the top 5 cards of your deck for a grade 3 card and add it to your hand. If you added, you discard. It doesn't say unit cards, so we can add the lovely Forbidal Surrogate from among them to our hand at the cost of something like, I don't know, Quick Shield. That's a pretty easy discard. You can get a Reit or a Forbidal, which is also kind of Reit. And then you just give up Quick Shield. Because having a little extra oomph to find the Reit is really important. Because she is our only grade 3. And this brings us to 10 grade 1s we're actually comfortable with riding, which is plenty. And then once you count these two, 12 is more than fine. You can very consistently ride up, and you can usually even do something when you ride to grade 3. 10 of these cards will have a skill that activates when you ride to grade 1, which is pretty helpful, all things considered. And I say this often, but we have enough grade 2 ride targets, even not counting the Pearl Sisters. In order to see a card consistently on turn 2, you need to only have 5 copies of it in your deck. So with 6, we're a little above Reit, and she likes to play a little conservative with her ratios anyway, because she's not the luckiest player I've ever met. Luck is not her strong suit. We have enough to consistently ride up. And we can do something when we ride. Because assuming we rode Ural or found a Nectaria in some way, Roan can let us counterblast 1 and search our deck for almost anything and add it to our hand. And Saria lets us churn through our deck. She's a very simple card, but she does quite a lot in practice. She has 1 skill, Auto. When she is placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, you discard a card from your hand. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You choose one of those cards and add it to your hand, and you put the rest on the bottom. She gets +5, but if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, she gets +10. Yippee. Being able to check the top 3 for anything is very clutch. So if you're digging for something very specific, like if you haven't found a Reit yet, not only does it check the top 3 for the cards you need, but it doesn't shuffle. So if you're desperation digging and you need to find the card, it keeps your deck thinner for that card, so that you don't have the potential to get one of those cards that you didn't want. Instead of just like whiffing a check with Sedna, it lets you, and then like you check top 5, nothing there, and then you shuffle. The deck is exactly the same as it was, random. You can't be any more or less confident that the card on top is going to be Reit. But with this, even if you don't find Reit, it does increase the odds that your next few draws will be Reit. So you could like Saria, check top 3, and then if there's no Reit there, then Sedna combines lets you check the top 8 cards for Reit, which if you haven't seen one at that point in the game, you are quite likely to find one with your powers combined here. Sedna and Saria end up being a perfect little split to be a playset of a card that is split over 2 grades, think of it, because we needed to round out our grade ratios. So having just a playset of 1 card doesn't do that. These 2 cards fulfill the same role of letting us look through our deck, but they do it at different grades. So you're able to take Rosa and replace her with something that consistently can let us see cards with no counterblast cost. So getting rid of Rosa was one of the best decisions we made. Sorry, girl, but that's just how it is. And then the last 3 main deck slots that aren't reserved for Elementaria are for countercharge, because we want to use Roan kind of a lot. And then Reit into Heltrauda costs 2 counterblast. And then if we've used Roan on our riding up and then to set up for that turn, that can easily end up chewing through 4 counterblasts. And then if we need to do it again next turn, Reit, Heltrauda, that is 6. 6 counterblast is quite steep. So we're going to need some countercharge. Originally I think she had 4 Rikas because she was so desperate for countercharge. I convinced her to shave it to 3. And recently we got an idea to go to 2, but the extra card here, Interesting Hope Sharatsuyu, kind of does the same thing but different. These are both have the same rules text on them, but the duos had a gimmick where they all came in 2 artworks. They had a white artwork and a black artwork. They did the exact same thing, but they just looked different because they're duos. So they have 2 artworks and they team up together. It was really cute. Unfortunately for V, they only brought in the black arts, but most people liked the black arts the most. Nina's favorite was the white art of Reit. That's her favorite. It's quite a nice looking card, if I do say so. Rika has a very simple effect. When this unit is returned to your hand from Rearguard, if you have a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, which of course you do, you soul charge 1 and choose a card from your damage zone and turn it face up, which is countercharging. It is the exact, well, it's not the same thing, but I think if you have one of those cards that if you did not countercharge this turn, countercharge 1, I think it's not explicitly countercharge, but it might as well be. So 2 of those, and then instead of a third one, we have Interesting Hope Sharatsuyu, who has done many, many things over the years. She's a nice little one of here because she has a skill that interacts with our starter. So Act, Vanguard or Rearguard, Soul Blast 1, choose a card from your soul with Shizuku in its card name, put it into your hand. If you chose a grade 0, countercharge soul charge, she gets +5. And our starter is, of course, Bermuda Triangle Cadet Shizuku. So we always have a Shizuku in our soul. So once per game, we can call her and then just act, countercharge 1, replace herself in our hand. And then the card in your soul gets replaced too, because you take out the 0, but then you soul charge 1. And then the Sharatsuyu that you call from your hand gets replaced with the Shizuku in your hand. So just kind of for free, you can call her and add a card to your hand, because we'll get to her full effect. But Heltrauda is going to have a steep discard cost of 3 before we do our triple drive. So we are going to need to have as many cards in hand as possible. So Sharatsuyu lets us countercharge without committing to the board like Rika. Rika is good because she's repeatable, but sometimes just that little extra countercharge and getting 1 extra card in rotation can go a long way. So I thought it was a really cute little include. Plus Sharatsuyu is a 9k and Rika is an 8k. The same body as a grade 1. So you have to be careful with her. Riding her can be dangerous. But it's nice to have a few cards that we can ride to swing under if we really want to. So we have 7 grade 2s that are 10ks. And if we're playing against decks we want to deny, we can have 9ks to ride to swing 9 on 10 to deny them counterblast. Or occasionally, maybe the 8k body isn't so bad and you want to swing 8 on like 9 or something. I don't know how often those situations actually come up in practice. That seems quite rare to me. Normally you would want to be playing this deck relatively aggressively. People can do some relatively crazy things in premium, and we don't have very much defense built into this deck. Instead of playing like a defensive thing to search up, we have this offensive engine here with the Pearl Sisters. We are trying to slam Pearl Sisters into face and win. We are not going to try and win on like turn 9 or something. We want to do something pretty explosive. Oftentimes this deck is the beatdown, not the control. This deck is not trying to sit back and play defense and wait for their opponent to overextend and run out of resources. This deck is trying to make the opponent run out of shield. Eventually, they just have to take 6 because you attacked them quite a lot for a lot of damage. And especially with the Pearl Sisters involved, you kind of cut them off of a damage, because if you push them to 4, that is the same thing as being at 5. So you can do some relatively clever things where, because they're not just going to take Caltrauda. I mean, I think sometimes they do, and that they'll win you the game because you'll check a crit, because we're almost maxed out on crits. I think she ended up playing 3 draws. Yeah, because she still needs some cards. So she didn't go full in, like 11 criticals. But we have the blue overtrigger to be an extra critical. So it's quite important that we get them to an even damage number, like 2. And that extra damage, like pushing somebody to 3 or 5, isn't as impactful when we're trying to win with the Pearl Sisters. It pretty much covers the main deck. As you can see, we don't have too much top end. We have, well, depending on how you look at it. If you look at it like this, you could say that we have 13 pieces of top end, cards that we have no shield and are important to playing aggressively. I mean, these have shield, but you're not realistically going to be blocking with them. And we have only a few cards to help us churn through things and make them consistent, but it's just enough. Our 10 grade 1s and our 6 grade 2s make it for 16. So a third of our deck lets us look through our deck even more. I mean, not counting this, because this is kind of a, I know it doesn't seem, or it seems like top end being a grade 4, but you can use this to set yourself up. It's not all top end, because you can search your deck for Reit, so it can become a consistency piece as well. So I hesitate to say that the deck is overloaded on top end, but it's not like we're light on it either. We have quite an explosive ramp up as we play the game. In fact, it's quite explosive. It's so explosive that she usually blinds second when she wins the die roll, so that you don't have to spend a turn doing V-Rate, because V-Rate is fine. Like, you bind a card and draw. You get to do a Vanguard restand. It's fine. But a lot of decks can do a lot more going first. So to make your turn 3 as impactful as their turn 3, it's nice to just go second so that you can just go straight into Caltrauda. And you have had an extra battle phase before your first grade 3 turn, so you can make it matter quite a lot more. Especially if you have the Pearl Sisters set up, exploding with that on turn 3 of like turns 1 and 2, you've threatened like 2 to 4 damage, and then you're threatening 12. It's a lot. And even if they do survive, they can end up being in quite bad scenarios where they don't have many cards left, and they're stuck choosing between answering the Pearl Sisters or actually threatening lethal, because sometimes it can be tough to do both. Like if you threaten lethal and whiff, and then they still have the Pearl Sisters, and you're almost certainly dead. If you run everything down at the Pearl Sisters after you lost all of that advantage, trying to block them the previous turn, you can just end up in a no-winning situation where all of your moves lead to your defeat. Even though there's just these 4 grade 3s, it's really consistent to do the thing. It doesn't look like it on paper that you would consistently can get both Pearl Sisters, but most games, because you see a lot of cards, you draw you just need to draw one of them. And even if you draw some of the older ones, that's not necessarily so bad because you have ways of binding them. Like, if you go first because your opponent won the die roll and wanted to go second, you draw one of those, then it's okay. You can just bind it off of your Reit skill. Use Roman and search it up. And then activate Nectaria, bind the other one, and then next turn, you're just one counterblast away from having Pearl Sister set up, and then it's kind of downhill from there for your opponent. You get to be in quite a nice spot, all things considered. For the rest of the main deck, though, there isn't too much interesting going on. It's just triggers and whatnot. Actually, this goes there. Boop. Boop. The last card that wasn't a trigger or a starter was Elementaria Sanctitude. It's just nice to have a Blitz order. She was able to make room for it, and if you can play it, there are very few reasons not to. It's a good card. It outs a lot of nonsense. In a wide open format like this, it's nice to have a catch-all. Any guard restrict nonsense? No. Dealing with Oracle Think Tank? Be gone. Dealing with Shirinui Rine? No, I'm just going to call this Inforbital Surrogate. It's fine. All perfect cards, no critinals, because things can attack you for quite large, like a deck like Grand Blue. If you don't have all 4 perfect cards in your deck, it can be quite challenging to block the Skull Dragons. Against a deck like Fenrir OTK, it can be quite difficult to block the 3 100 million swings without 3 perfect cards. Or if you only have 3 perfect cards, then it can be quite tough. As I mentioned earlier, we have the blue over trigger because we have a restanding Vanguard. Checking crit on restanding Vanguard is pretty good. They give you some number to pass on Reit. You check blue OT, you go, okay, I break, take 2, stand up, swing 100 million with crit. It can break backs. It's quite good. I don't think I have to pill you on blue over trigger. Red over trigger can be strong sometimes, but restanding Vanguards like extra crits. We're not a rearguard centric deck. We're Vanguard focused to an extent. Like, yeah, we could have the Pearl Sisters and whatnot, but this, because Reit can end up being one of the weaker stars of the show if it's your first grade 3 turn. Having the Pearl Sisters on force markers swinging for really huge, and then Reit attacks you for 13 twin drive. I was like, okay, block with this crit. Show me 2 triggers on your 2 checks. Do it. I dare you. We maxed out on the good crits. We don't have very many grade 3s, so we want the stride fodder crits to help us stride. We have the G crits, so when we take a damage, we can draw a card. We don't have Loris, but that's fine. This lets us play kind of like 7 draws while still playing 9 crit, which is pretty good, of course. And then a whole playset of the grade 3 heal triggers. They're really nice, especially if you're blind seconding, you can receive a lot of pressure. So using the grade 3 heals to reduce that pressure comes in pretty clutch. And then, of course, lastly, we have our starter, Bermuda Triangle Cadet Shizuku, who it does matter that it is specifically Shizuku, again, because of interesting Hope Shard Tsuyu. You don't have to have a fancy SP one, but you do need to have a Shizuku. The counter charge is very clutch. The only thing I want to say before we move on is if you happen to have any SP copies of Cherish Phrase Reina here, Nina is looking to finish getting her main deck max rarity. Aside from prize cards, don't count, so these are fine. She's not looking to buy a champion blue OT, but these are essentially off the market. I think the Highlander players scooped them all up. If you are getting off of Highlander because that deck sucks, Mood, I feel you. Talk to us, reach out in the comments, send me an email, find me on Discord, find me at an event. I'm not always there, but I'm at a lot of events. So if you see me, talk to us about
exchanging your SP cherished phrase Reyna's, because she would really like to have those SP. She would really like that. And I would be more than happy to help her find them. That is the main deck. That is all 50 cards. All 50. So, that just leaves the G-Zone, which is 16 cards. Did I turn this around? Oh, no. I see. Yeah, I didn't see she's got all of the artworks on the sleeves. Well, not all the artworks, but essentially we got the black and white of the original Temptation artwork, which, phenomenal artworks. And this was Everlasting the Stride, and this is a reforming, of course. For our G-Zone, we have a few things that are stuck in place. Of course, we have Harmonix Messiah, who I'm not going to read the whole text box to you if you're not familiar with Harmonix Messiah. Just having it in your G-Zone lets you have a 20k second quick shield. It's really nice. It's in there to hang out. Our most important stride is the Radiate Ocean Heltrauda. She's basically just next stage, but with extra steps, if you're familiar with next stage. See? She has one skill. It's 2 skills. She has the effect that when she attacks, you discard 3 cards. This is before your twin drive, or before your triple drive. So this is why it's kind of a steep cost. It's difficult to have that many cards in your hand, to have a full board and 3 cards when you're all-inning somebody at the end of a game. So you have to be careful to maintain just enough card advantage. Once you discard 3 cards, you return all of your rear guards to your hand. All cards other than on V. So this bounces your locked circles too. So she breaks locks like Ange. You return everything. You choose 2 cards and you call them to rear guard. And at the end of the battle, as her second skill, that's part of the first skill, it creates that callback, but only if you've done the discard 3. You counterblast 1, soul blast 1, return her to your G-Zone face up, and stand your Vanguard. So this essentially stands your whole front row for discarding 3, which is pretty steep. This is a -1 restand, but actually in terms of your overall advantage on your side, restanding your entire front row at the cost of discard a card, counterblast 1, soul blast 1 is a pretty decent rate, all things considered. That is a lot of output for very little input. But it can be challenging to have that many cards at the end of games. So sometimes you just have to know when not to stride Heltrauda, when that 3 card discard cost is going to prevent you from building the board you need to actually close out the game. You want to stride her, but wanting to and being physically able to are not the same thing. Being physically able to and having enough throughput to win from that position is also another question. This is a really cute one, and I think it came up, but not very much. There's 2 copies of the Shizuku Stride, the Splendid Fortune Shizuku. I don't know how much this has actually impacted the game. I think I've seen her go into it a few times, and I don't think it did much when it was around, but it's funny. Helps you in some weird edge case game states that you can end up in premium. So her skill is just the 1. Act, counterblast 1, persona flip. That's why we have 2. You reveal cards from the top of your deck. You check the top 5, right? It's so hard to read this card. Yeah, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 2 grade 3 cards or cards with Shizuku and their card name from among them, and put them in your hand. Shuffle your deck. Then you reveal up to 5 cards with Shizuku and their card names from your hand. She gets +5 for each, and then your opponent can't call cards with those grades. So you add this. If you can add the starter to your hand from your soul with Shartsuyu, you just like swing big, no zeros, and sometimes that can win you a game. You know, you check the top 5, you add a Reit and or a heal trigger to get some defense. You swing big, they take it, and it lets you force in some damage without having to go through too many cards in hand. It's a fine option. Again, Bermuda Triangle G-Zones have this weird issue where Heltrauda is so good, that's all you want to do. The rest of your cards kind of don't matter. So I'm not too upset about the Shizuku here. It's pretty clutch. It's not a bad option to have. There is Perfect Performance Ange, the original Ange, who has a pretty simple skill. Act, Counterblast 2. Then you choose any number of circles that aren't Vanguard, so rear guards and locked circles, and you return the cards on those circles to the hand. Then for every card returned, she gets plus 5k. If you bounced 5, you draw. If you bounced 7, she gets a drive check. So you have to give you fill up your board because it's an act skill. Then you counterblast to bounce your board. So the 5 and draw is pretty free, and then the plus 25k. So if you just choose like your opponent's grade 2 front rows or something like that aren't going to give them shield, then you just get an extra drive check and plus 10k for very little input. Sometimes it's a weird form of disruption, not usually, but it can be. This forces a perfect guard. You swing huge with quad drive. They just perfect guard that. It doesn't come up much, but there were situations like where you don't have the resources to go into Heltrauda. Your opponent doesn't have the CB, so it's not like you want to pressure them too much. You just swing with this. It's like, block this or die. I get a bunch of cards. All right, your turn. It's not bad. In this slot in her tournament deck list, there was Shushu debut stage Tirua, but that card I have not ever seen her do anything good with that card. Neither has she, so we agreed after the tournament to swap it out. So this is, if you watch this, you get a special insight that's not in her deck log. Instead of Tirua, we're playing the History Stride, Fluffy Ribbon Somni. There's no Lorises in this deck, so we can't get the extra markers and whatnot. But for no cost, just at the end of the battle she attacks, pick up a rear guard, call another one. It lets us have a stride that we can push with it while we have 0 face-up counterblast. Tirua was in there for that reason, but this lets us do it first stride, and it doesn't make us neg the same way Tirua does. This just gets us an extra attack for pretty free. It ended up being really clutch. As soon as we put it in the G zone, literally the next local tournament we played it in, it came up. And it was pretty nice to see the fruitions of our efforts. Lastly, for the strides, she has 6 G guards in here. We have cards we put in just because they're neat. You know, again, it's just Heltrauda, so the rest of the G zone slots kind of don't matter. So if they don't matter too much, why not play the Progenitor Dragon and the Zeroth Dragon? I got to see Ball and Arena win her a game. It was pretty neat. I don't think I've ever seen her go into Megiddo, but Megiddo is always just nice to have in your G zone. It can always come up. The Progenitor Dragon and and Megiddo have a very similar stride cost. You have to discard a card with the same card name as your Vanguard. So in this case, that'd be Reit. The Progenitor Dragon, they all have a continuous skill that they can't be flipped up while they're face up or while they're in your G zone. But then if they are face up, so you have to stride it, you get to stride for free for the rest of the game. And then it has one simple skill. When your opponent's unit is placed on Guardian, you can discard a card from your hand with its grade 1 or less and retire it. This doesn't negate the skills of that Guardian, so if your opponent calls a perfect card, you don't get to negate it, but if for some reason you want to retire it, you can. G Guardians that can still use their skills to interact still get to do that. But you can push through some like weird games where you just have a bigger hand than your opponent, but you're like under Honolly or something, so you can just use this and you can just have like a hand size measuring contest. You're like, sorry bro, mine's bigger, you lose. It's a nice card. It's just nice to have. I watched this winning game. If you don't like it, you can play something else like a Tirua, but this card is really clutch. It is one of the strongest Progenitor Dragons. That effect to shoot down Guardians is really strong and can let you finesse a lot of games that might be tricky to win otherwise, especially if you don't have any counterblast. But if you do have counterblast to spare, then the Zeroth Dragon of Distant Seas Megiddo is really nice. As an ultimate stride, so you can only stride it if you have 3 face-up G units. and then it costs Counterblast 2 when it's placed on Vanguard to choose any number of, or up to 5 cards from your hand and drop zone. And you call them. They all get +5, and then at the end of the battle that they attacked, they change positions with another one of your rear guards. So you can have like a force marker or 2, and then have everything attack from that force marker. So when you don't have anything to stride Heltrauda, or you don't have enough cards to fill the board for Heltrauda, you can slam Megiddo, get all your things back, get back your Pearl Sisters. And I believe if you had like the other Pearl Sisters in your drop zone for whatever reason, they say that all of your Pearl Sisters get the extra power. So you could end up in situations where you have like 4 big beefy Pearl Sisters beating in for over 30k, 40k even with the Force Gift. If you have 2 Force Gifts, 50k with crit on all of those, just bam, bam, bam. It can close out a game for sure. Megiddo is super nice in here. Super nice. The last 4 cards are, or 6 cards, sorry, are G guards. We have 2 of our flippy G guard, Sandy. Sandy as one of those GB1 G guards where you flip a card in your G zone face up in order to use her skill. You flip a G guard, and then she gets +5k shield for every 2 cards in your hand. So if you have 4 cards, then she gets +10k shield. 8 cards +20. And then you can counterblast 1 to get an extra 5k shield if it like just wasn't enough or something. She's neat. Sometimes she just lets you be a big shield G guard. That's always nice. Sometimes she doesn't cut it, but usually she does. And then we have the Bermuda Triangle Classics. If you want to be able, our G guard let us put cards down and pick things up. She's only playing 1 copy of Citron. Citron has a pretty simple skill. When you G guard with her, you call a card from your hand to rear guard, and then she gets +10,000 shield. So you can like call a grade 2 with an on-place effect like Saria and do some filtering. If you had a Heartily in your deck, you could use that. We don't. But still putting down cards on the board can come up to be useful, because you can then pick them up with our other 3 G guards, Leona and Lucretia, I believe. I don't know how to pronounce her name if I'm being honest. The newest G guard we got, Diva of Exaltation, Lucretia or Lucrece. I don't know how to say it. You counterblast 1 to choose one of your rear guards, and you return it to your hand. If it was a low grade unit, she gets +15,000 shield, grade 2 or less. And if it's grade 3 or greater, you get +5k for the whole turn. So that can be useful for blocking lots of swings that come at you a whole bunch. If your opponent's going to poke at you for like 17 a billion times, this can be really nice to just go to 18, be done with that nonsense. Or, you know, pick up a grade 2 and you have big shield. So if you have nothing on board, then you can combo with like Citron, call something, Lucrece, bounce it. And then this is essentially just a third Lucrece. Hand-in-hand Leona is doesn't have the counterblast attached to it. You choose one of your rear guards, you return it to your hand, and then mandatory call a card from your hand to Guardian Circle. So she doesn't like give you additional blocks in the way that Lucrece does. We could counterblast 1 to have another card in hand so you can get 1 more block out. Whereas this makes you pick up a card, but then you immediately lose a card. But sometimes it can be worth it. And she doesn't cost a counterblast, so there are situations where you would like to save your counterblasts for just a little longer, so that you can have the big push you need next turn. She comes up clutch. And that is all the cards in the G zone. I explained pretty much everything. Every choice in here is pretty sensible. Because if you don't have the Shizukus in here, like, what do you put in here, right? You could put in more G guards. You could put in a second Ball and Arena. You could put in a second Edge. You could play a tier. It doesn't really matter what you do with these last 2 slots, honestly. Shizuku's has the potential to matter. This could be personal preference if you feel like blah, 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 blah. But I don't know how much personal preferencing you can have, because have you played this deck for 2 years? No. This stride it's fine. Because all it is not Heltrauda. You have to fill up your G-Zone with cards that aren't Heltrauda, and it's one of those. Heltrauda is so very, very strong that you will be very rarely going into any of these other cards here.
But you have the options. You have cards that you can use when you have no face-up damage. You have cards that you could use with excesses of damage. You have G-guards for multiple scenarios. And so just having a Shizuku in there to hang out isn't so bad. I've liked her. I've seen her come up a few times. I still think she's really neat. That is the only thing in the deck that leaves me kind of worried is Shizuku's suboptimal in a way, but because like she doesn't do much, she's not an impactful card in your G zone, but nothing we put in this slot is really impactful. I haven't thought of any card that actually felt like it belongs here. So just for the funny corner cases where it can come up where you like your opponent is hiding behind a whole bunch of zeros, you just swing it and they die. It's funny. It's funny to me anyway. I would love to sit here and show you an example game or example combos, but I'm trying really hard to keep the videos less than an hour. I always fail, but not always. Today, according to my little thing in the corner, I've been recording for 56 minutes, so we're under an hour. Maybe if this video gets a lot of likes, I could give you some example gameplay. We could break down all the choices I made. We could do a mulligan exercise, this or that. But without an excessive amount of feedback. The feedback I've gotten from a lot of people is, Mimi, your videos are too long. I didn't watch it. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe if it's under an hour, it'll be easier to click on. Or maybe I just need to make a podcast instead. So let's just do a little wrap up here while I sip on my tea. Again, sorry about my voice. It's the winter season. Sick going around. Everybody getting all close together for the holidays. Makes it really difficult to find time to just rest and recover, right? But it's been a good year. This is my last video of the year. Hopefully, the new year we'll be able to make some improvements to the community together. I want to start doing things like gameplay videos, or like where I VOD review myself, play some games on my webcam and walk it back with y'all. I could give you guys tournament reports, meta breakdowns, this, that, the other. Please, if you made it this far, leave a comment or like the video. Do some kind of engagement. If you made it all the way here to the end of the video, all the way here, you are part of the 1%, according to YouTube. So just do a little something. Engagement helps to boost these channels that are small like this. Leaving a comment and liking the video has been scientifically proven to increase its outreach. So to help spread the gift of Reit for the new year, go on and give the video a little like. Tell me in the comments what kind of things you'd like to see from me in the future. If you want videos that are longer than an hour, you want videos to be even shorter, you want me to try and make them down to 30 minutes, this, that, whatever, you just let me know. I read all the comments every time. Before we go, the last thing I want to say though is I am very, very proud of the way Nina performed in this tournament. Even though I have done the deck review on the 1st and the 6th placed players, they have both impressed me quite a lot with how well they've managed to improve their game. The champion, Alicia, she's been able to maintain her game where she knew that she could do well, and she just let herself keep piloting her same deck that she believed in, whereas Nina kept honing her skills. I was really proud of the way that they were able to shine through. So if y'all are listening, thank you so much for being yourselves. I love you all very much. And that's it from me. I've been Mimi from Cardfight Crash Course. Spread love and be kind. Bye.